the question. After all of this conversation, and we see that they go into your city, and when this came across my algorithm, I said, "Oh, this is cool. This is cool. This is fire right here." And I said that this is fire. Don't put my phone number in the chat again. My phone number already hit the internet one time, not again. And the reason why this was important to me is because I remember when Detroit filed for bankruptcy in 2008. I remember when Detroit, y'all mess. I remember when Detroit filed for bankruptcy. Hey, put the number to Brandon Johnson's office or to nah, don't do that. Don't do that. I remember when Detroit filed for bankruptcy, and I see a lot of these cities on the exact same path. So when this popped up in my algorithm, I said I wanted to share this with the people instead of just watching it by myself. Here's the question. As this migrant crisis continue to trudge forward, and as these cities continue to dedicate a numerous amount of unlimited resources and basically using this as a credit card and taking out credit, mortgaging your children's future in order to support this crisis, and as we try to figure out what's going on in this country, here's the question that you need to ask yourself. Is the city that you're living in possibly going to be one of the cities that go bankrupt or file for bankruptcy as a result of the migrant crisis? Make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Shout out to Teach Hanley, 30% off your first order plus a free gift. Let's get it.
We have this international crisis that really requires federal intervention that local government is being asked to subsidize. Local government is not designed or built to handle such a crisis.
Definitely both a humanitarian crisis for the migrants that are arriving, and it is creating a fiscal crisis for the city.
I don't see an ending to this.
Shout out to the Cash Apps.
Will destroy New York City.
The present migrant crisis is quite unprecedented, both in scale, in the diversity of the nationalities that are coming to the border, and the impact it's having not only on the border states, but in the states and cities inside the country.
I think it's at this point politically unsustainable for the Biden administration to maintain this unlimited flow into what's essentially a welfare state network of cities like New York and Denver and Chicago.
So how long can cities withstand?
You can't be in a crisis mode. We have to be in a crisis mode.
And this crisis is expensive. In 2018, New York City spent roughly $258 million to fund its immigration services, adjusted for inflation. By fiscal year 2023, the city had spent $1.47 billion servicing the...
Now, let me throw an alley-oop to my reparation folks. As you know, I don't believe in reparations, nor do I believe in running in the Victim Olympics. But if you got to pick a group of people in order to give some money to, because I'd love to see a whole bunch of Escalades parked on the front lawns of y'all mama's houses. I know how you going to spend your reparations money if you was ever to get it, but guess what? You ain't never going to get it. They spending more money to study reparations than they are to actually give it to you. And again, I'm not the type of person that believe in reparations because I just believe in getting it out the mud. However, look at the difference of what 5 years makes. From $258 unnecessary million that they spent in 2018 in New York City to $1.47 billion. And that's just stuff that they openly documented. We don't know how they finessing the numbers. We don't know what's really happening behind the scenes, but $1.47 billion. And see how they label it? They say to those that are seeking asylum. No, these are illegal immigrants. These are people coming into this country that is not supposed to be here. And there's a difference. There's a difference.
Those seeking asylum. The city of Chicago spent over $194 million on its new arrivals mission since October 2022. Denver is estimated to have spent between $36.3 million to $39.1 million on migrant support services in
And we know that Chicago is spending over $30 million a month. Listen, they finessing the numbers. The accountants is over there cooking the books. We know for a fact, based off of all of the research and all of the different live streams and everything that's come out of these politician mouths, we know for a fact that they've spent well over $30 million a month, and they anticipate it going up because they have more migrants coming in every single day.
2023.
The three biggest items for expenses for new arrivals is housing, education, and healthcare. And they're all three high-ticket items.
The idea that we could have a generous system of welfare benefits from health to education and so on, and allow the entire world to access those benefits is just mathematically impossible. So we're starting to see the math not adding up in state after state.
The sheer volume of newly arrived migrants is a major reason behind the city's struggles. In fiscal year 2022, just over 817,000 new cases were filed in immigration courts across the U.S. That number exploded to nearly 1.5 million new cases the following fiscal year. The particular background of current migrants also plays a role.
The secret sauce of migration has worked in the past is that people would come and they would not depend on the city and state for.
And here's the interesting part about that is that we're not even really taking into consideration how much in resources it's taking away from things that we already had budgeted. So, for example, police officers, border patrol, buses, planes, trains, automobiles, food, iPhones, stolen scooters, crime, justice systems, right? Jails. It's an untold amount of money that is being spent on the migrant crisis. This is the biggest look, of all of the things that the United States of America has invested in over the last 5 years, this has been the biggest investment in history. In the history of the United States of America, there has never been, over the last 5 years, in 5 years, there has never been a bigger investment in a group of people than the migrant crisis that's right now. That should upset you. That should upset you. We didn't invest in housing. We didn't invest in paying off debt. We didn't invest in the people. We didn't invest in education. We didn't invest in infrastructure. We didn't invest in anything. This was legislation that wasn't even passed that we was just forced into. We've invested more into people that's not from this country. They are literally taking classes. They're taking classes to learn English every day. They studying vigorously. We've invested more into people than we ever have anything that's beneficial in the United States of America. Not your children, not teachers, not police officers. People that's not from here.
Settling them. They would depend on their social networks. It seems in this case, many of the people coming in are coming where they're not such inbuilt connections. Venezuelans have, which is the largest source of a nationality of the new migrants. It's particularly true that they don't have inbuilt connections.
Reading that super chat shortly, big dog.
Communities are long standing. So they therefore, in the absence of private source of comfort for them, then they become dependent on the states and the cities. And the states and the cities have limited resources.
Although immigration has primarily been an area of federal oversight, experts say there just isn't enough federal funding for cities to work with.
The current level of federal funding provided to state and local governments is a drop in the bucket compared to the need. Congress has provided a very small amount of money of $800 million for a FEMA program for the entire country for last fiscal year to provide assistance to cities in aiding these newcomers.
But cities say this isn't enough. For instance, the $145 million allocated to New York City is less than 10% of what the city spent on migrant services in fiscal year 2023.
This is a whole spectrum of services needed for people who are new to a place, new to a country, new to a city. Everything from finding warm clothes for them, to finding jobs for them, to finding shelter for them. These are complicated issues to manage. So the city, the state, and the federal government, frankly, was not prepared for it.
Texas is providing charter buses to send these illegal immigrants who have been dropped off by the Biden administration to Washington, D.C. We are sending them to the United States Capitol, where the Biden administration will be able to more immediately address the needs of the people that they are allowing to come across our border.
So the historians will probably record the current migrant crisis as a chapter of busing migrants.
No, they should record it as the legend of Greg Abbott. Let me give him a round of applause. I'm going to read that super chat shortly, sister. This is the legend of Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott was the only governor that truly spearheaded addressing this issue directly. Hey, remember when this first started happening, when they started to do it and people thought that there was just a novelty, that they sent some migrants over to Martha's Vineyard and they sent some of them over to Kamala Harris's house, and then they sent a couple over to Washington, D.C., and people thought it was cute. Oh, look, listen, if you don't like it, then they just gonna send it to your house, and nobody really cared, and ain't nobody trip about it. And then Greg was like, okay, I got you. So you don't want to listen, huh? You ain't paying attention to what we talking about, huh? He was juvenile on 400 Degrees. So you don't want to listen, huh? You don't want to keep paying attention to what we got on our borders, huh? You don't want to pay attention to what we got on our shores, huh? You think this shit ain't major, huh? So we gonna put razor wire and alligators, huh? On our borders to make sure it's secure, huh? You think you gonna send even more, huh? They coming from Venezuela, huh? I ain't really even playing, huh? So we gonna keep on sending these migrants to Chicago, huh? In New York, huh? And you don't think that we playing, so we gonna send some more, huh? Yeah. Greg Abbott turned into juvie. He turned into juvie. Yo, you ain't no time dog could freestyle, did you? You ain't no time could spit it off the top of the dome. Yo. You ain't know that, huh? You ain't know that I was all entertainment and very few substance. You ain't know that this is the greatest morning show on earth? Yeah. You ain't know. I've been preparing my whole life to do this show. My whole life I've been preparing to do this show. And Greg Abbott is just like Juvie. Y'all see Juvenile's Tiny Desk concert? That was Greg Abbott up there, wheelchair and all. That was Greg. Yes, it was. He not playing no games with y'all out here in these streets.
This kind of coordinated, dramatic busing of asylum seekers from the border to the cities inside the countries is completely unprecedented.
Since the first bus of migrants to Washington, D.C., Texas reported it has transported over 100,000 migrants to cities such as New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver, and Los Angeles. In 2023, illegal immigration is estimated to have cost Texas taxpayers $13.4 billion. According to the Texas newsroom, the state spent over $148 million busing migrants to sanctuary cities as of January 24, 2024. The office of the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, did not respond to CNBC's request for an interview.
The two motives, I think, behind it were, one, simply necessity that Texas doesn't have the resources to cope with 150,000 people a day being released into the state. It's a big state, it's a reasonably wealthy state, but they just simply don't have the schools, the hospitals, the roads, the housing to cope with that kind of influx.
The staggering new record, more migrants crossed into the U.S. on Monday than any other day in history.
The current crisis of forced displacement is a global phenomenon. There are more people displaced worldwide than ever before, and 1 out of every 5 displaced people is in the Americas.
That's crazy. That's insane. 1 out of every 5 displaced people come to the Americas. I believe personally that you are going to start seeing some of these cities fall like dominoes because they can't sustain it. They can't sustain this. You can't sustain such bad behavior for an extended period of time and don't think that there's some consequences to be paid for it. I think that what they hoping is that they can kick the can down the road long enough for another mayor or somebody else to pick it up in their wake. And that's unfortunate because as long as this migrant crisis continue to trudge forward, I am going to be right here on the front lines, leveraging the little voice that I have with all of my phenomenal people and my bag chasers in order to bring it to the forefront of the congregation. Shout out to Mr. DJ. He gets down, making records spin round and round with the hip to the hop. You just don't stop producing funky records. Yo, shout out to Mr. DJ on Cash App. I appreciate you for holding me down, my guy.